Hi everyone. Welcome back to Woo Can Cook. My name is Wesley, and this is a show where we are slowly cooking our way through all of the food from my childhood. Today we're returning to our newest series on this channel dedicated to cooking our way through some of the highest rated recipes on the internet that I did not write, so that we can compare them to our own Woo Can Cook recipes and see how they might differ. Those following along with this channel may likely know that, though we are well past 200 videos and recipes on this channel now, in fact a handful of them are much more popular than the rest, so naturally we're going to be starting here. Today we're going to be looking at the string bean chicken recipe from the Woo Can Cook series, which I would guess is in fact how a lot of y'all found this channel in the first place. Now, the recipe that I wrote for this dish a very long time ago has a handful of additions to it that I would say are a little bit unconventional, mostly in an effort to give this dish more depth of flavor and a more balanced palate to the stir fry. This, as I recall, includes the addition of hoisin sauce in the marinade, as well as black bean paste and doubanjiang in the stir fry itself, ultimately with the intention of elevating the dish from its place on most takeout menus as a very basic veggie stir fry. More specifically, today we're going to be comparing our version with the Walks of Life take on the string bean chicken, which, as it happens, in addition to being the highest rated string bean chicken recipe on the internet, is also a recipe that I've personally cooked through a number of times myself, and as with many of the recipes in their collection, proves to be a great resource for wok cooking fundamentals. Okay, so let's get into it. Okay, so diving right into our Walks of Life recipe, for the sake of accuracy, I'm going to be following their recipe as close as I possibly can, just so that we can eliminate as much user error from our comparison as we possibly can. To start things off with our veggies, the Walks of Life recipe calls for 2 cloves of crushed and minced garlic to start, followed by 1 pound or 16 ounces of string beans, or green beans. They are the same thing. The tip ends of our string beans tend to be a little bit chewy, so I'm just clipping these ends off, then slicing into halves and giving a quick rinse for dirt. Then that's actually it for our vegetables here. I know that the Woo Can Cook version of this dish calls for sliced onions to pair with our string beans, but I actually appreciate the simplicity of the string bean stir fry though. The fact that it literally only contains string beans and chicken feels a little less cluttered in my opinion. In any case, moving on, up next, this is 12 ounces or 3/4 of a pound of chicken thigh, which is still slightly frozen so that we may more easily slice against the grain into thin strips. Now, I'll mention right now that this actually felt like too much chicken to my taste. I believe our recipe calls for 8 ounces in total. The reason for this is because I have a feeling that this large amount of chicken is going to overload the wok later on, but we'll get to that in a moment. Moving on next, our marinade here is actually quite a simple one, which actually feels very much in line with the string bean chicken that I've had in most restaurants. Up first here, this is 2 tablespoons of water to start, which I would guess is here to help loosen the marinade up enough to disperse throughout the chicken, then followed by a single teaspoon of soy sauce, a half teaspoon of sesame oil, and a single teaspoon of neutral oil. This is grapeseed oil that I'm using for myself today. Now, I'm not certain, but if I had to guess, I know that this recipe was written with the intention of using either chicken breast or chicken thigh, so I would guess that the additional neutral oil here that we're adding is to help compensate for the leaner cut of a chicken breast. Since we're using thigh today, I actually don't think that this is going to be necessary, but it certainly doesn't hurt though. Next up, in a separate bowl here, I'm reconstituting a half cup of chicken stock for our sauce base. Obviously, if you have fresh stock, then yeah, use that. Going in next, this is a single teaspoon of white sugar for some sweetness, followed by a tablespoon of red cap full sodium soy sauce and 2 teaspoons of dark soy sauce. As far as I can tell, this dark soy sauce is going to be the primary umami driver today. Finally, I'm rounding this all out with a 1/4 teaspoon of sesame oil, a 1/4 teaspoon of white pepper, and 2 teaspoons of cornstarch dissolved in our sauce. Now, while I do understand the thought process here with mixing that cornstarch straight into the sauce, hypothetically there's no reduction or cook that's going to be happening to this sauce, so why not just add it directly in? But I actually think that this is going to be a big mistake though, which feels sacrilegious to say about a walks of life recipe, I know. But hear me out. As this sauce reduces, we're going to want to have some amount of control over how much cornstarch actually goes into the sauce itself, hence why a cornstarch slurry mixed separately would be useful. This is so that we can add some, but maybe not all, of the cornstarch, depending on all sorts of factors. This includes the heat of the wok, the amount of fat rendered from the chicken, the amount of moisture yielded from the green beans. I could go on, but here we are though. Over on the stove, I have my wok heating up over medium-high heat. Then I'm adding 4 tablespoons of neutral oil to the wok, and as always, long yao for that nice non-stick surface. Then here's my chicken going in, which we're searing undisturbed for 2 minutes before turning the fire up to high, then tossing with the wok tilted downward for wok hei. As I expected, I am having a little bit of trouble with the wok hei today because our wok is definitely overloaded. In any case though, I'm tossing my chicken for an additional 1 to 2 minutes until cooked through, then removing from the wok, reheating over medium heat, adding an additional 4 tablespoons of peanut oil and giving 1 more long yao. Then here's my green beans going in next, which we're doing a similar sear to for 2 minutes undisturbed before also tossing over high heat for an additional minute. Then next, I'm adding a 1/4 cup of water to the wok, reducing the heat to medium and covering for 90 seconds to steam. Coming out of this steam, I'm adding my garlic to the wok with the green beans shifted to one side for surface area contact. Then we're deglazing this remaining chicken fond with Shaoxing wine around the sides of the wok. Now, this is a technique that I see come up pretty often in the Walks of Life series, obviously inspired by Eurocentric cooking and how you might deglaze fond from a pot with, say, a white wine. I think this technique has a double-edged sword to it with wok cooking. Although it does work well in incorporating the residual fond for flavor, I also think that the higher heat of the wok is cooking off the acidity of your Shaoxing wine pretty aggressively too, so just keep this in mind because you're probably going to want to add a little bit more Shaoxing wine than you normally would to compensate for this. Finally, rounding this all out, here's my sauce going in. I did end up adding some extra water here, about a 1/4 cup or so, just to keep our sauce from tightening up too much since the cornstarch is already added in. Then here's my chicken going back in, followed by a quick toss to combine, and we're ready to eat. Okay, so let me start off here by mentioning that not only have I made this Walks of Life recipe many times now, but in fact the Wu Can Cook string bean chicken recipe is also largely inspired by this one. I think there's a lot of core fundamentals that are happening in this recipe that serve really well as the building blocks to any stir fry, most especially the fry steam method to the string beans, as well as the incorporation of fond into the sauce base too. Also, more importantly, I think there's absolutely nothing wrong with this stir fry that we've made here. This is a simple, healthy, and easy to make dish that I would absolutely stand by on any Monday night meal. But all of this said, I do have to say that I think this recipe falls a little bit flat for me. It's just sort of missing a lot of depth of flavor and richness that I'm looking for in a stir fry that can't quite be carried entirely by 2 teaspoons of dark soy sauce alone. I think the brightness of some Shaoxing wine would really help breathe some life into this dish, but because we burned off so much of its brightness in the deglaze, I think we're also missing a lot of alcohol-based acidity in the palate too. In the Wu Can Cook version, we solved this by adding black bean paste for umami and doubanjiang and chili crisp oil for heat, but I will also say that these additions definitely are unusual, almost like we were making an entirely different dish. So yeah, choose for yourselves accordingly. Okay, so that's it everyone. I hope you enjoyed this and I hope you give this one a shot. For those who are new to the channel, this one is part of a brand new series dedicated to reproducing popular recipes on the internet, so definitely check out that series next if you haven't yet, and let me know what you want me to cook next. As always, like, comment, subscribe, share, be nice interneters, and I'll see you soon. Bye.